It begins with a single drop, a single unassuming drop of water, clear, cold, and seemingly pure, splashing into a glass in a quiet suburban kitchen. The faucet shuts off with a soft click. A child reaches for it, thirsty after a long day at school. They take a sip. Nothing tastes strange. Nothing feels wrong. But deep within that drop, invisible to the naked eye, something ancient and unnatural stirs. A mutation, a pathogen, a virus that doesn't just infect the body, it rewrites it. And it's already in the pipes, already flowing through the veins of America's water supply. What if, right now, as you turn on your tap, you're not just drinking water, but drinking death? Imagine waking up to a city that no longer feels like home. The morning news reports isolated cases of people collapsing at work, babbling incoherently, eyes glazed over with something not quite human. Doctors are baffled, hospitals are overwhelmed. The first theories point to a new strain of encephalitis, maybe a toxin in the water. But then the footage starts to surface. Grainy, shaky phone videos from Chicago. A man biting into another man's shoulder at a bus stop, teeth sinking deep, blood spraying across the pavement. In Atlanta, a woman drowns herself in a public fountain, screaming about voices in the pipes. In Denver, an entire neighborhood goes silent. No calls, no power, no movement except for shadows flickering behind drawn blinds. And every single case, every single victim, drank from the tap. You flush your toilet, you brush your teeth, you boil pasta for dinner, all with water that may already be tainted. What if the thing that sustains life, the very essence of survival, has become the perfect carrier for extinction? The virus doesn't need mosquitoes, it doesn't need coughs or sneezes, it only needs flow. Rivers, reservoirs, treatment plants, pipes snaking beneath cities like arteries. And once it's in, it's everywhere. The Colorado River, the Mississippi, the Great Lakes. The faucets of New York, Los Angeles, Houston. Millions of gallons pumped daily, carrying not just hydration, but horror. Think about the last time you filled a glass from the sink. Did you hesitate? Did you wonder where that water came from? Now imagine knowing that somewhere upstream, in a reservoir choked with runoff, or a treatment facility compromised by human error or sabotage, the virus slipped through. A single failure, a single breach, and now it's replicating, not in the water itself, but in the bodies of those who drink it. It lies dormant at first, hiding in the bloodstream, biding its time. Then, within 48 hours, it activates. It targets the brainstem. It hijacks the nervous system. It doesn't kill the host, it repurposes them. And when the transformation begins, it's not pain that screams through the body, it's hunger. An all-consuming primal hunger for flesh, for blood, for the living. What would you do the moment you realized the water couldn't be trusted? Would you stockpile bottled water? Would you boil it, filter it, pray it's a meth? But what if boiling doesn't work? What if the virus is heat-resistant, shielded by microscopic protein shells that laugh at your stove's flame? What if your Brita, your Life Straw, your high-end reverse osmosis system, what if none of it matters? The infection is already engineered to survive. It evolved in darkness, in the deep, forgotten corners of underground aquifers. Or worse, what if it was designed? A bioweapon gone rogue? A lab accident buried under layers of government silence? The truth doesn't matter when your neighbor starts twitching after a shower, when your brother vomits black sludge and then lunges at your throat with teeth bared like a feral dog. Now picture the moment the system collapses. Not with a bang, but with silence. The water pressure drops. The taps run dry. Cities go dark as power grids fail, not from sabotage, but because workers are gone. either dead, infected, or barricaded in their homes. Emergency alerts blare across phones. Do not consume tap water. Repeat, do not consume tap water. But it's too late. Millions have already drunk it. Millions are already changing. And they're not shuffling, groaning zombies from old movies. These are fast, aggressive, driven by a viral intelligence that coordinates, that learns. They gather near water sources, fountains, fire hydrants, rivers, drawn like moths to the origin of their infection. They don't sleep, they don't tire, and they're multiplying faster than anyone can contain. You're in your home. You've sealed the windows. You've boarded the doors. You've got a week's worth of bottled water, canned food, a flashlight with dying batteries. Outside, the streets are eerily quiet. Then, drip, 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 a sound from the bathroom. The faucet. You didn't turn it on, but it's leaking. A thin stream of water snakes across the tile. You approach slowly, heart pounding. Is it just a broken valve, or is something pushing the water from the other side? Because water doesn't flow uphill, unless someone or something is forcing it. From the basement, from the sewer lines, from the infected crawling through the underground, turning the city's plumbing into a weapon. What would you do if you heard scratching inside the walls? Not rats, not pipes, but fingernails. Desperate, wet scratching, like someone drowning in concrete. And then a voice, your neighbor's voice, gurgling through the shower drain. I'm so thirsty. Just a little sip. Would you run? Would you scream? Or would you stand frozen, realizing that the safest place in your house, the place you thought was sealed, has been compromised from below? The virus doesn't just spread through drinking. It spreads through exposure, a splash in the eye, a cut on your hand while washing dishes, a steamy shower where infected droplets ride the mist into your lungs. There's no safe way to use water anymore. Not really. Not unless you're willing to die of dehydration. And now imagine the government's response. Martial law declared. National Guard troops in hazmat suits blocking access to reservoirs. Airdropped warnings over cities. Boil water advisories are ineffective. Assume all municipal water is contaminated. But panic spreads faster than the virus. Supermarkets looted, gas stations ransacked, people fleeing north, south, west, anywhere they think the water might be clean. But there is no clean water. Not when the Mississippi is infected. Not when the Missouri is a river of contagion. Even rainwater can't be trusted. What if the virus aerosolizes, riding storm clouds, falling with the rain? What if the snow on the Rockies is tainted? What if the very cycle of evaporation and condensation has become a conveyor belt for the apocalypse? You watch from a hilltop as a refugee convoy tries to cross a bridge over the Ohio River. Soldiers stand at the far end, rifles raised. They're not letting anyone through, not without testing. But how do you test for a virus that takes 48 hours to show symptoms? A man stumbles forward, holding a baby. "We haven't drunk anything," he screams. "We've been using bottled water." The soldiers hesitate. Then the baby coughs. A dark mist sprays from its mouth. The man collapses. The soldiers open fire. Chaos erupts. Cars flip. People scream. And somewhere in the river below, something surfaces, pale, bloated, eyes milky white, dragging a corpse beneath the current. The water is alive with the infected. They don't drown, they adapt. They crawl through sewage tunnels, emerge from storm drains, rise from lakes with water streaming off their rotting skin like baptismal robes. What if the cure isn't medical, but geographical? What if the only safe places left are where no one lives? The deserts, the high mountains, the remote wilderness where there are no pipes, no treatment plants, no civilization to corrupt.
But getting there means crossing hundreds of miles of infected territory, means risking every river crossing, every rest stop, every gas station with a bathroom, means trusting no one because anyone could be infected, anyone could be a ticking time bomb.
And even if you make it, what then? Do you live like a hermit, never touching rain, never drinking from a stream, always afraid of the next drop? Is survival even worth it in a world where water, the most basic gift of life, has turned against you?
Now consider the deeper horror. Not just the physical threat, but the psychological unraveling. Humans are 60% water. Our blood, our brains, our tears, they're all made of it. What if the virus doesn't just infect the body, but changes our relationship with water itself? Survivors report nightmares, dreams of drowning, dreams of drinking from a lake only to feel teeth inside the water biting their tongue. Some develop hydrophobia, not like rabies, but something worse.
The sight of water makes them vomit, makes their skin crawl. They see faces in puddles, hear whispers in the sound of rain. And in the silence between storms, they wonder, is the virus still evolving? Is it learning to speak through the flow? And then, the most terrifying question of all, what if we're not dealing with a virus at all? What if it's something older, something that was always in the water? Ancient spores, buried in glacial ice, released by climate change. Microbial life from deep underground aquifers, never meant to see the surface. Or worse, what if it's not natural? What if this was a test? A failed experiment in bioengineering designed to purify water by breaking down pollutants, but it learned to break down people instead? And what if the people who made it are still out there, watching, waiting to see how far it spreads before they step in? Or worse, what if they want? Will this happen? You find a radio, a faint signal, a voice crackling through the static. If you're hearing this, don't trust the bottled water. Your blood runs cold because you've been drinking it, you've been surviving on it. But what if the factories were compromised? What if the plastic isn't a barrier? What if the virus can seep through microscopic pores or was introduced during bottling? You look at the shelf in your basement, dozens of bottles, your lifeline, and now they look like tombstones. You remember the logo on the label, a river, a mountain, a drop of water, and beneath it the words, sourced from the Colorado Basin. You check the date, bottled 3 days after the first outbreak was reported. You didn't think so. You just grabbed what you could. And now you wonder how long you have? The world is fracturing, not just by infection, but by ideology. Some form cults around water. They worship it. They drink it willingly, believing the virus is a divine purge, a rebirth. They gather at rivers, arms raised, screaming as they swallow gallons of poisoned water, their bodies convulsing, transforming, ascending. Others burn anything connected to water, wells, fountains, even bathtubs, believing fire is the only purification. And then there are the scavengers, the warlords. The ones who control the last clean sources. They sell a single bottle for a gun, for a child, for your soul. Water is no longer a right. It's currency. It's power. It's war. And in the midst of this, a single, haunting realization. We never respected water. We wasted it. We poisoned it. We took it for granted. We built our cities on rivers, our farms on aquifers, our lives on the assumption that it would always flow. And now, in its revenge, it doesn't rage, it doesn't flood, it doesn't storm. It simply changes. It becomes patient, silent, inescapable. It waits in every drop, every mist, every tear. And it reminds us of one unbreakable truth. Life cannot exist without water, But water does not need life. So ask yourself, what would you do? If you woke up tomorrow and the faucet ran red, not with rust, but with consequence, if the glass you raised to your lips carried not refreshment, but oblivion, would you fight? Would you flee? Or would you kneel by the nearest stream, not to drink, but to apologize, to beg forgiveness from the element we exploited, ignored, and ultimately awakened? Because the scariest part of this scenario isn't the zombies. It's not the blood, the chaos, the end of the world. It's the quiet horror of realizing that the thing we depended on most, the thing we thought was pure, safe, eternal, was never ours to control. Water has its own will, its own memory, and perhaps, in some deep, forgotten way, it remembers what we've done to it. The chemicals, the plastics, the droughts we ignored, the rivers we drained, the warnings we silenced.